A few days ago, it was announced that Stetson Bennett is returning to Georgia for his sixth and final year of eligibility for college football. He will attempt to lead his Georgia Bulldogs to a second national title in 2 years. Bennett returns along with the majority of offensive starters and has a loaded quarterback room. You have ESPN top 300 and 24/7 Sports 4-star quarterback Carson Beck. You have Brock Vandegrift, who is listed as a 5-star pretty much everywhere. And you also have Gunnar Stockton, who is a 4-star according to 24/7 Sports, and the 109th prospect for ESPN coming in the 2022 recruiting class. So you have a bunch of really talented guys. Stetson, again, being a walk-on, even if he doesn't start, which is a possibility, because at places like Georgia, they are going to choose the best player possible, even if the guy led you to a national title. That's how it works there. I just want to clarify that. Stetson will have an opportunity to groom the starting quarterback and teach him. He's a guy with experience, so that also helps. So there's experience returning to Georgia's QB room. You also have stars like Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers on the offense, Bowers especially being the freshman player of the year, and others including Nolan Smith on defense return as well. So Georgia is once again in a position to reach the playoffs, but we here are mainly going to talk about Stetson's impact, my reaction to his return, and others' reaction, including the general population, whether that's Georgia fans or just college football fans, and 24/7 Sports and ESPN's articles, which I will link down below, and I encourage you guys to check them out. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the reaction, some of my opinion, and then get into his career statistics thus far, what he's accomplished, talk about some of the bigger games that Bennett has played in, to discuss his impact and why I think his return is actually very critical to Georgia's success next year. So let's get right into it. So immediately when Stetson Bennett entered the transfer portal, and this is what we're going to start, JT Daniels and Jermaine Burton was projected to be Georgia's wide receiver number 1, immediately hit the transfer portal. Daniels is listed as a 3-star at the time of transfer. 24/7 Sports is this really cool thing where they re-rank prospects when they enter the portal. Burton, I think, is still a 4-star. Daniels is ranked as a 3-star. So Daniels trending down since he was recruited in high school. But the interesting thing is the general sentiment and reaction that I have gotten, especially from a lot of Georgia fans, is they don't like that he's returning, in a certain sense. They don't like that the quote-unquote 5-star QB messiah and their main wide receiver are leaving. And my question is, why do you care? Daniels didn't win you that national title. They didn't even have enough faith in him. The staff didn't, to play when Bennett was playing like crap against Alabama in the SEC championship game. You know what that tells me? That Daniels was never ready. Ever. He wasn't ready. He wasn't going to win you those big games. He just wasn't. And maybe that was because of his injury. The fact that, Bennett was already in the system so long, it might have been a mistake to put him in at the end. But seriously, Daniels leaving because Bennett is returning, to me, is a sign that JT Daniels thinks that he's not going to start, and seeing how the staff has put their faith in Bennett, we're just observers and fans. The staff actually knows completely the situation, unless you who are watching this happens to be an insider and knows more than I do or the average fan does. The staff knows what they're doing here. JT Daniels leaving doesn't impact Georgia's chances to win a national title. All year, the analysts, myself, fans were saying that Georgia would never win a national title, would never win a big game with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Well, guess who's laughing now? Stetson Bennett is, because we all doubted him. Don't doubt him again, especially if you're a Georgia fan. He's not this impact Heisman big flashy guy. He's a system game manager guy and a walk-on. So yes, he has a ceiling, and he's not going to win you every game. But you know what he did? He stepped up, and he certainly helped you win that national title game. And he certainly helped you win the Orange Bowl by blowing out my team, the Michigan Wolverines. So there's obvious impact there. He's obviously a leader. He's well respected. And being a walk-on and having the patience to, play at Georgia, wait a few years, and come back when they needed depth after he transferred to a smaller school, and then he got the starting job. He failed in 2020, pretty miserably. He came back and had a total bounce back year this year. It's impressive. It is honestly, it is what it is. It's impressive. But I just don't I don't understand how you can dismiss what he has done and not like him returning if you're a Georgia fan. And I'm going to read an article from 24/7 Sports that kind of gauges, puts some of what I said in perspective just a little bit. Not exactly, but somewhat. Georgia football quarterback Stetson Bennett is returning for another season, fresh off his MVP performance in the national title game against Alabama, throwing 2 touchdown passes and no picks in a decisive fourth quarter. Bennett, who some thought he would lose his starting job down the stretch to JT Daniels, finished the season with X amount of stats. Daniels never started again, and Daniels entered the transfer portal. And Georgia also has, Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton, all people I mentioned. It's a good situation for Kirby Smart and OC Todd Monken to be in, as they have an array of talent and experience to choose from for their quest to be national champions once again. Bennett was one of college football's best stories of the 2021 season, and many would have slotted him third, maybe fourth, around Michigan's Cade McNamara at the quarterback spot among the 4 playoff teams. That's just, listen, did you even hear that sentence? Did you hear that? This guy, many would have placed as the worst QB. The worst QB out of all the playoff teams. Around Cade McNamara. And McNamara is a system guy. He does not have impressive stats, and he doesn't make many mistakes, but when he makes mistakes, they're normally in, big spots. Cade McNamara led Michigan to 12 wins, nonetheless. He helped Michigan in a similar way that Stetson Bennett helped Georgia. It's not like Cade specifically won us many big games, but he helped us. That would be like me hating Cade McNamara for returning because, maybe he'll beat out the 5-star quarterback J.J. McCarthy, the shiny new tool. And, I'm going to be scared if McCarthy leaves. But that's pointless, because the staff knows what they're doing. And if McNamara's the better QB, and J.J. doesn't like it, and vice versa, if Bennett's the better QB, and J.T. Daniels doesn't like it, so what if the worst QB transfers? You have the one that better fits what the staff wants and needs, and therefore that's likely going to help you win. Now, there are instances where the staff is incorrect and they choose the wrong QB, and either they switch in the middle of the season or they don't switch at all and everything collapses. But at a place like Georgia, who won the national title, I would not, under any circumstance, be doubting my head coach. A lot of people, or I wouldn't be doubting the staff who chooses the quarterback either, a lot of people are praising him as well, which I find to be amazing. He's one of the best stories ever. Again, leader. He started as a walk-on. He's now led Georgia to a national championship. The next step is to try and get him an SEC championship that they missed out on, and maybe repeat the national championship appearance and win. And that's honestly what he is returned to do. So we've just talked a little bit about his story here, and now we are going to, of course, discuss his stats, how he impacted Georgia, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's just do that here. So Stetson Bennett, in his total career, has passed for 469 times. He's completed 291 of those 469 attempts. He's completed 62% of his passes, thrown for 4,301 yards, 9.2 yards per average pass, 39 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 160.6 career passer rating. He also has 325 rushing yards on the ground and 4 rushing touchdowns. So Bennett does have legs. I would say that he is to some degree a dual threat quarterback. As a Michigan fan, I have experienced it personally firsthand, along with some of his better moments in the passing game, and it hurt. It's left a wound that will take a while to heal. But speaking of that, let's look at his stats in the games against Michigan and Alabama in the playoffs. Against Michigan, he went 20 of 30 for 313 yards, completed 66.7% of his passes, threw 3 touchdowns, no picks. He had a 187.3 passer rating and 32 rushing yards. Against Alabama, he went 17 of 26 for 224 yards. He had a 65.4 completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He was sacked 5 times against Alabama. He still had a 163.1 passer rating, and because the sacks, he had negative 24 rushing yards. Those are impressive numbers in the playoff, especially for a walk-on and a guy who, before these 2 games, never really played well in a big game. In the original matchup versus Alabama, he had a 132.2 passer rating. This is the SEC championship game. He was 29 of 48 for 340 yards, completed 60% of his passes, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions, one of which was a pick 6, and he had 11 rushing yards. So, yeah, he did not do well in big games before this. He did well in some of the smaller games against crunch competition, and that is the SEC East, smaller competition, and some of the schools not named Alabama in the SEC West, which are by talent, coaching, and basically everything inferior to Georgia. Let's just be honest. But he finally stepped it up in the playoffs and did well against Alabama and did well against Michigan on the big stage and won a national title, and that's all that matters. And I just don't think you can complain. I look at his stats, and it just, to me, doesn't make any sense how you can complain. And I've even watched him play. And yes, there are moments where he heaves it deep and makes some mistakes. But the staff has to know what they're doing. And it's not like JT Daniels looked impressive early this year. Granted, yes, he had some injuries to deal with. He didn't do well against Clemson. He didn't do well in some of the games that he was healthier in. And he did a little inferior to Bennett, actually. And even when he did do very well, maybe better than Bennett, it was playing teams like Vanderbilt and some of the bottom feeder SEC East teams. So you have to give Bennett and the staff some benefit of the doubt. They won you a national title. So that's just my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And I rarely do a video that, is filled with some opinion or even some anger, like largely both of them. It's rare. But this bothered me. Discrediting what he has done because of a label placed on a guy who's injury-ridden and for now, in all intensive purposes, is a bust of his original ranking in JT Daniels is unacceptable. You got to give Bennett the credit of the doubt. JT Daniels is probably a wonderful, hardworking player and young man like Jermaine Burton, but they wanted other things. And you can't necessarily blame Stetson Bennett for causing them to leave, if that was a factor. Because it's their, at the end of the day, it's not even that Bennett caused them to leave. It's their own decision. Let's read a little bit more from ESPN. The title being Stetson Bennett announces return to Georgia. JT Daniels, Jermaine Burton hit the transfer portal. This article from ESPN, along with the other one from 24/7 Sports, will of course be linked down below. Stetson Bennett said Wednesday that he will return to Georgia for a final season. The quarterback he replaced, JT Daniels, won't be. Daniels and wide receiver Jermaine Burton both entered the transfer portal Wednesday, with the news officially coming around the same time that Bennett took to social media to say he'll be back in 2022. One more year, the former walk-on Turner starter, that's an awkward way of putting it, pardon me, wrote on Instagram. Let's roll. I like that. Bennett replaced Daniels as the Bulldogs starter in early October and ultimately led them to their first national championship since 1980. Daniels, who transferred to Georgia from USC after the 2019 season, had started 3 games early in the season but dealt with an oblique and lat muscle injury before being replaced. In 2020, Daniels, returning from a knee injury, actually replaced Bennett and guided Georgia to 4 wins, passing for 1,231 yards and 10 touchdowns, and beating Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. Daniels in 2020 looked good. There was reason to believe in him, largely over Bennett entering 2021, honestly. I mean, Daniels looked completely different in 2020 than he did this year. And yeah, some of that is obviously, most of that probably, is due to injury. And the kid has potential. But that's another factor that obviously that everyone's weighing in when determining whether to start Bennett or Daniels. Just a thought. Daniels, ESPN's number 3 pocket passer and number 64 overall prospect in 2018, played the 2018-19 seasons at USC. He's the true freshman to get the starting job. USC did very poorly in 18. In 2019, USC did a little better, but Daniels really wasn't the largest contributor to that season, as he unfortunately suffered a season-ending knee injury. Keaton Slovis replaced him and finished out the year, and he did not return. And then, we all know, he transferred to Georgia in 2020, so did Jamie Newton, but Newman opted out, and as a result, it opened the door and the path for Daniels to eventually start and lead Georgia to, I think, an 8-2 record and a win in the Peach Bowl. If I'm incorrect, tell me down below. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I think that Bennett here, returning, even if he doesn't start, he's going to provide experience, leadership, and a work ethic to the QB room, help mentor some of these younger, very talented prospects. I think it's a win-win for Georgia. And for Stetson Bennett, you know, he gets another year doing what he obviously loves. He himself probably never, ever thought he would be in this position. Probably never thought he would help his team win a national title. And he did. He even beat a guy who everyone projected to beat him out, honestly, at the end of the year. Because Daniels eventually got healthy, and the staff chose to remain and stay attached to Bennett. So at the end of the day, I think it's unreasonable to complain about Stetson Bennett leaving, or returning, JT Daniels leaving. It is what it is. I think the better guy returned. I think that JT Daniels, he's probably going to do well at whatever school he goes to, but Bennett just fits better for Georgia than JT Daniels does. It might not be that Bennett's better, but for whatever reason, the staff and Bennett fit better together than they would with JT Daniels. And all that matters is that your team does the best that it can, whether that means starting the more talented guy or not. But everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I've laid the groundwork and some of the evidence with his statistics and some of my own opinion. But that's all I have to say for this video, really. And if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. What do you think about Stetson Bennett's return? Do you agree with me and think that it's, better that he returned and JT Daniels left? Or are you in the opposite camp and you're just disappointed with Stetson Bennett returning and you wanted JT Daniels to return and try and start for the third time? And if so, tell me why. I love having conversations. I love having people who disagree. It's what makes college football all the more entertaining. So hit that like button, hit that sub button, comment your thoughts down below, hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I post future videos as well. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys around.